He calls me late at night, voice low, a little hesitant, and then says, almost in disbelief, I think I've never met anyone like you. And I smile, because that, my dears, is the sound of a man realizing he's standing on the edge of his own decision whether he's ready to step up, commit, and see a woman for the queen she truly is, or step back and watch her glow without him. That's the first thing I want you to understand. Marriage is not a trap. It is a reflection of alignment, of psychological readiness, of him seeing your value without you having to spell it out. Too many women chase commitment as if it's a checkbox, as if it's a reward for being nice or staying loyal. And that is the fastest way to make a man shrink from responsibility rather than leap into it. You don't make a man decide to marry you by nagging him, by fixing him, or by exhausting yourself emotionally. You make him decide to marry you by being magnetic, self-contained, and irresistible in ways that tap into the very architecture of male desire, respect, and fear of losing something extraordinary. Think about its psychology teaches that humans attach more strongly to what they feel they might lose. The thrill of uncertainty, the magnetic pull of a woman whose life is full without him, whose mind is sharp, whose standards are non-negotiable. This is not manipulation. This is mastery. The first rule I live by and teach is this: never make yourself fully available. When he texts, you respond, but not instantly. When he invites you out, you weigh it against your calendar, your projects, your social energy. The second he realizes that your attention is a privilege, not a given, he starts noticing the layers of value he cannot replicate anywhere else. And yes, I know it feels counterintuitive in a world that teaches women to bend, to accommodate, to prove themselves, but think about the lioness. She does not chase the cubs for affection. She rules her territory, and the male learns to respect it or leave. Storytelling helps here. I remember one dinner with a man I had been seeing casually for weeks. He was charming, handsome, predictable, and slightly entitled in that way men often are when they assume the woman's interest is guaranteed. I arrived later than expected, looking effortlessly curated, radiant in red silk that caught the golden candlelight. I did not apologize. I did not explain. I smiled and let the silence linger, measured my words, and watched him lean in, suddenly alert, suddenly aware that his assumptions no longer applied. That, my sisters, is the power of strategic presence. And if you're new here, subscribe, turn on notifications, because in Femphoria, we don't teach desperation, we teach authority, elegance, and psychological influence. The second rule: sustain mystery and unpredictability. You don't need to vanish, but you do need to be a woman he cannot map easily. Daily life, routines, habits, these are predictable. You want to be predictable in your integrity and your core values, but unpredictable in ways that keep him intrigued. Psychology calls it intermittent reward. The human brain is wired to pursue patterns that yield unexpected delights. If he knows every word, every movement, every response, every mood, he will start taking you for granted. But if you are full of surprises, small, elegant, subtle, becomes invested emotionally, mentally, and eventually, unconsciously, in your permanence. The third rule in this is non-negotiable. Hold standards that elevate both of you. I don't mean material standards, although those can play a role in framing the life you want. I mean emotional and ethical standards. He must rise to your level of integrity, ambition, and self-respect. Men are wired to admire and commit to women who operate from a framework of high-value boundaries, because boundaries communicate clarity, confidence, and unshakable self-esteem. Let me be clear: compromise in love is a skill, but surrendering your essence is fatal. You can negotiate logistics, preferences, and schedules, but never negotiate the non-negotiable. I've witnessed this over and over. Women who soften their core too much, men who sense weakness, and a lifetime of unfulfilled promises. Instead, anchor yourself in your values. Live them openly. and allow him to either rise to meet them or exit gracefully. The fourth rule: master the art of joyful independence. Nothing is more intoxicating than a woman who has a rich, full, unapologetic life, friends, hobbies, career, adventures, self-growth without him needing to provide meaning, excitement, or validation. He observes, he admires, he compares, and most importantly, he calculates whether he can integrate into your life in a way that feels additive, not intrusive. This is subtle dominance at its finest. Not by controlling him, but by controlling your own energy, your own orbit. You become the prize, the standard, the lighthouse, and finally, the fifth rule: communicate the unspoken future through alignment and partnership cues. Marriage is rarely decided in a vacuum, it's perceived, felt, and forecasted. He must see a life that aligns with his aspirations, a partnership where he is wanted but not coddled, challenged but not diminished, loved but not entitled. Small gestures inviting him into meaningful projects, observing how he supports you, watching how he manages your boundaries. These act as psychological accelerants. If he consistently rises to these cues, he begins to perceive a future with you as inevitable, desirable, and prestigious. And once he reaches that perception, the rest is timing. And this is where philosophy, psychology, and feminine mastery intersect. As Aristotle said, excellence is not an act but a habit. Repeated patterns of high-value behavior, elegant presence, and unshakable self-respect create the conditions for commitment organically, not forcefully. Think of it as composing a symphony. Every glance, every pause, every measured response is a note in a melody he cannot resist. Your luxury is psychological clarity. Your wealth is emotional abundance. Your power is consistency in self-possession. I remember mentoring a young woman who felt desperate to secure engagement, texting incessantly, compromising her boundaries, trying to earn him with affection. When she implemented these 5 rules: holding space, cultivating mystery, maintaining standards, thriving independently, and signaling aligned partnership, her world shifted within weeks. He started initiating dates, expressing long-term intentions, and finally proposed at a moment when she was celebrating her solo achievements, proving to herself first that her life was complete without him. Ladies, this is how alignment works. When your life is full, your standards are firm, and your energy is magnetic, marriage stops being a question mark and becomes a consequence of inevitability. And if this video resonates, comment your biggest takeaway. Subscribe for daily empowerment. Turn on notifications so you never settle for less than your highest standard. Because Femphoria is about making you unstoppable in love, life, and desire. You must remember, commitment is not about convincing a man. It's about embodying the woman who makes commitment the only rational choice for him. So let's seal this in your mind. These 5 rules: controlled presence, mystery, standards, independent richness, and alignment are not tips. They are a lifestyle, a practice, a mindset that rewires attraction and triggers decision-making in ways that feel natural, inevitable, and luxurious. When you walk into a room full of energy, purpose, and self-possession, when you respond with selective availability, when you uphold your standards without apology, when your life is a masterpiece in motion, men will not just notice, they will act, and they will choose, because your value is impossible to negotiate, impossible to replicate, and impossible to forget. This is not manipulation. This is mastery, and mastery is irresistible. Remember, a man who truly wants a future with you will rise, and the right one will meet your rules with joy, not resistance. Repeat them daily in your life. Make them habits. Watch how your energy reshapes his choices without a single word of pleading. Marriage is not the goal, it is the reflection of who you already are. Magnetic, powerful, unshakable, and undeniably elegant. If this video touched you, comment "I needed this." Subscribe to Femphoria. Turn on notifications, and return to rewatch it when you need a reminder of your authority. Own your life. Hold your space. Radiate your power. And watch as commitment becomes an organic, inevitable, and luxurious extension of the woman you were always meant to be. And here's the truth every woman needs tattooed in her mind. The moment you stop performing for him, stop molding yourself to fit his expectations, and start living unapologetically as the queen you are, everything changes. Men are drawn not to neediness, not to approval seeking, but to mastery of your own energy, your own choices, your own joy. When you hold yourself with quiet authority, when your laughter fills a room without asking for attention, when your ambitions are clear and non-negotiable, he cannot help but recognize your value. This is the power of presence, the subtle dominance that makes him envision a life with you not because you begged for it, but because he feels it, because your existence demands alignment, admiration, and ultimately, action. Marriage, commitment, long-term devotion, these are not gifts you give. They are decisions he makes when confronted with a woman who embodies certainty, abundance, and magnetic self-possession. So wear your confidence like couture. Let your standards shine like diamonds in golden light. And move through the world knowing that your life is already extraordinary without validation. And yet, the right man will choose to invest, to rise, to commit not because he can, but because he recognizes a woman who cannot be replaced. A woman whose fire challenges him to grow, whose elegance reminds him what true love looks like, and whose presence makes him feel both captivated and profoundly at home. That is the art, the psychology, and the feminine mastery of attraction in its purest, most luxurious form. Never apologize for being too much, too ambitious, too radiant. Will either rise to meet you, or he will fade into the background. And that, my sisters, is the ultimate sorting mechanism of life and love. Own it, live it, and watch how the universe conspires to bring the man who is worthy of your unparalleled power straight into your orbit.